Welcome to the latest installment of the Freaky Fauna Files podcast. Join us, your hosts, the chicken
and the egg,
where the eternal question remains. Which one comes first?
Hey, I'm the egg, and today I'm going first. Join us as we delve into the intriguing world of two creatures boasting about their freaky defense mechanisms, the sea cucumber and the Texas horned lizard.
Ooh.
Stick around till the end, where we retreat to the safe zone, examining these critters' captivating methods of deterring predators and exploring potential applications for humans.
And of course, you can catch visuals of all of the featured fauna and the references mentioned in this episode on our social media platforms. Tune in on various podcast streaming services and follow us at Freaky Fauna Files for more quirky content.
Today I'm going to start off with the sea cucumber, and we'll dive into the taxonomy. So it belongs to the echinoderm phylum, which also holds things like starfish or sea stars, whatever you want to call them, sand dollars, sea urchins, brittle stars, sea lilies, and our sea cucumbers. So they belong to the class Holothroidea. And amazingly, there's about 1,200 to 1,800 species of sea cucumbers. Yeah.
There's that many?
1,200 to 1,800 species.
Oh my gosh. I see them all the time while I'm diving, and I've only seen like a few different species to where I only thought there were a few.
It's crazy. And I'll get right into the variety. So most sea cucumbers are pretty standard cucumber size. We're going to get about 4 to 12 inches long or 10 to 30 centimeters. But the smallest little guys can be 0.1 inch or 3 millimeters.
Oh my gosh.
So
small.
Little. And then get this, disgusting. The largest of the species is 10 feet or 3 meters. And guys, sea cucumbers they can be pretty thick. They can be like a couple inches in diameter. They're not worms, right? They're fat cucumbers. And imagine that 10 feet long.
Oh my gosh. I feel like you could compare them to like squash.
Yeah. They're pretty thick.
They're thick boys. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we got a wide variety. I mean, when you have that many species, I feel like you're going to be pretty varied, right?
Yeah, they would have to be. I mean, I've seen some with like hair-like projections. I've seen some like bumpy and warty or very smooth. So yeah, you're right. I can see that.
So funny you mentioned that. I was going to talk about their skin to give you an idea of what we're talking about.
Nice.
So they have more of a leathery skin. I don't know if you've ever touched a starfish or a sand dollar. They're a bit more rough to the touch, and they're more rigid. So if you were to squish on a sea star, they're not squishy. They're pretty hard, right?
Yeah.
Sea cucumbers are squishy and leathery. And just like you said, some have spikes, some have warts, some are smooth, some are colorful in spots, some are just, one solid color. There's a lot of variety. They're really pretty. They're also gross to look at.
Did you dissect one in invert? Oh
yes.
My gosh. Doesn't it just feel wrong?
It's gross.
To hold
it's like
in your hand?
Ball sack.
Yes, it is a flaccid penis in your hand. That is what it feels like to hold one of these guys.
Yeah.
It does not. It's just weird.
Speaking of penis, they do get flaccid and like, what's the other
rigid?
Word? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
So it depends on, threatening. If they're moving, if they're just chilling there,
they're having a good time.
Idle, then they're squishy. If they're moving or if they're posted up for an enemy, then they're rigid.
All right. They got to be stiff.
Yeah. So they walk around using podia, which is the scientific word for feet. Just like their buddies in the echinoderm phylum, they use 5 rows of tube feet.
Oh, they also have 2 feet too?
They do have tube feet, so it's exactly what you think. They're kind of like
little suction cup looking things?
I was just about to ask you what the word for a suction cup was. Suction cup.
Suction cup is the word for a suction cup. Just to let you know.
Well, no, shut up. So they have suction cups on the end of little tubes, basically tube feet.
Cute.
That they can crawl around on. And there's also a species of apodia, which means they don't have any feet. So they kind of just snake and inch their way along.
Like undulate?
Mm-hmm. Going back to the leathery skin, it's made out of collagen, which allows it to stretch and contract. So they can actually fit into really small spaces. They don't really have any calcium-based bones or hard pieces. So just like an octopus, they can fit into really small places.
That was exactly my thought, was the octopus. I was about to say that.
This is just too cool not to mention. You can chime in because you're a diver. I said they come in every shape and color imaginable, but I want to point out that most species that live in the deep sea, they are red. And the reason that most species are red is that red is the first color you lose as you go deeper into the ocean.
Yeah, it is.
So red is the longest wavelength. So as wavelengths stretch out, they have less energy and less energy to penetrate the water. So as you get deeper, kind of like 30 feet or 10 meters, you actually lose the ability to see the color red, right? Can you chime in on that?
Yeah, so as you go deeper down, and there's actually some really cool videos demonstrating this where somebody has gone down with like a dive computer and like a panel of colors, and you can see how the colors change according to depth. And you were absolutely right. Like red is the one that leaves first, and it goes in the order of the rainbow. So you'll lose those red, those orange, those yellows, you'll lose all that first, leaving your violets and everything kind of towards the end. So that is definitely try and true information. Yeah.
So it's advantageous for a sea cucumber to naturally be the color red because if you are a prey animal or if you're pretty sessile, meaning you're not actively swimming around, I feel like you're more easy prey. So when you're at the bottom of the ocean where light is not able to penetrate, and even if there is light, if you are naturally the color red, you will appear more black or dark blue.
That's
so
cool.
You're way harder to see. So if I were to see a cucumber at like 1,000 feet depth, it would be dark and almost invisible to me or to a predator. But if I were to bring that sea cucumber up to the shore, it would be bright red.
Yeah, I can actually believe that because with spearfishing, one of the things that you have to think about, and I'm not really a spearfisher myself, but with spearfishing, you have to consider that color loss because you can be down at depth and you can shoot a fish thinking that it's like a gray snapper or something, and you bring it up and it's actually a red snapper. Like you can't rely on color necessarily. Yeah, in the water. You have to rely on more like shape and form and kind of behavior more than anything else too.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's super cool.
All right. Next, we will continue talking about the physical attributes of the sea cucumber. So on one end, they have a mouth, and they have about a ring of oral tentacles. So there are about 10 to 30 oral tentacles that have evolved from tube feet. So if you take these little tube feet that are probably a few centimeters across, and you modify them to be more like little grabbers, then they are efficient for either grabbing food or filtering water. So
that's one of their main things, right? Yeah.
So they have evolved different species, evolved different shapes. So if you are a sea cucumber that eats pretty visible things, maybe a crab or some other small crawling animal, then your tube feet, your oral tentacles would be more like grabbers. If you are a filter feeder, so they mostly eat, I'll get into this when I talk about their diet. If you are a filter feeder, you need a more branched kind of net so that you can just stick it up in the air and it catches what's called detritus, which is also called marine snow. It's basically that organic matter floating around in the water.
So I bet the branches function similarly to the Laudel's external gills, as in increasing that surface area increases the likelihood of them getting more detritus, getting more palm, getting more marine snow, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, sea cucumbers do not have a true brain, but rather a ring of neural tissue, which basically means that all of their central nervous system, all of their nerves, all of their sensory organs is basically centralized in an area, not to call it a brain, but rather just like a head area.
Like a zone.
Interestingly enough, they don't have any mind-muscle connection. If you cut off its head or if you remove any sort of neural tissue it has, it's still able to fully contract and move around. Like I said, I didn't do too much research on that because that would have been a whole nother topic. But
Yeah, I was about to say, that should be for a different episode. Maybe we can come back and touch on that a little bit more in detail, but that's not what we're here today for.
the question remains, what controls the muscles if there's no mind-muscle connection? Thought that was interesting. Another thing is, what is the neural tissue for if it's not controlling? I mean, I'm sure it connects to breathing and digestive tract and things like that, but like, how interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what they would do either. I'm trying to think back to like all of the lectures and see if something like
training.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's like all those years of college.
Next is the respiratory system. I'm going to put a pin in this because I'm so excited to bring it up later. They possess what's called a respiratory tree, which is a series of like branched tubules that you would think about your bronchi and capillaries, the branching system in your lungs.
And like the alveoli.
Basically what they have, except for it's not enclosed in a lung. It sits directly behind the cloaca, which is a reproductive / excretory organ. So it's kind of the one hole does it all type thing.
Yeah, that's very, very common in the animal world. It's just to have one hole and that be it.
Yeah. So the cloaca sits just inside the anus. So like I said, one hole. And right behind the cloaca is the respiratory tree. And the reason that it's located there is because the sea cucumber breathes out of his anus.
Oh, that would make life very interesting.
So the sea cucumber breathes out of its anus by pulling in and out water. And since the respiratory tree is right inside the anus, it gets direct oxygen exchange.
Got it.
I just thought that was very interesting that you're breathing in and out of your butthole.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that.
It's interesting. Since they do have a mouth on the other side with oral tentacles, interesting that it evolved breathing out the butt.
Yeah, but I mean, you said we're putting a pin in it, right?
Yes, respiratory tree
you must have something else for us
comes
later.
back. Remember that term.
Okay. One thing I do want to bring up too with the respiratory tree, throwback to the dissection too that we were talking about a second ago. Do you remember how bright and vivid it was? Like, anytime if you've ever done a dissection, most of the time when you look inside, it's pretty bland. Like, there's not a lot of color.
Yeah, no.
Everything is pretty washed out. It's not like the colored diagrams that you see. But with the sea cucumber, do you remember looking at the respiratory tree? It was like a bright orange.
Maybe.
The mine was like vibrant, and it wasn't dyed or anything.
I just remember it's like a massive plate of spaghetti. Like,
yes,
tiny noodles that, if stretched out, were probably like 5 feet tall.
Yeah, like little angel hair noodles. It's like an orange
inside
angel
my
hair.
Dissected spaghetti squash.
Yes, inside the flaccid squash.
So, like I said, sea cucumbers are found in the deep sea, but they're also found in shallow land such as New Zealand and a lot of Asian Pacific Ocean. Interestingly, sea cucumbers comprise over 90% of animal biomass found in the deep sea.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah, I believe
They're
that.
everywhere.
Yeah.
You can find them about 5.5 miles deep or 9 kilometers deep, so they're down there. I mentioned this before. They're pretty gelatinous, so they lack bones and hard pieces.
I bet that helps with the pressure of living in that deep sea environment.
Most, if not all, deep sea animals do not contain hard pieces because they can't withstand that pressure. So you gotta be squished. They evolved to be squished. This was also interesting. They live purposefully in large numbers with up to 100 sea cucumbers per square foot, or 1,000 per square meter. Yes.
Anytime I have seen one while on a dive, it's always been like one
By themselves.
or two by themselves. And I most definitely have not been 5.5 miles
Deep.
deep. No, that has not been me. So I've seen them in shallow waters too, but they're not grouped up. So I wonder if it's like a deep specific behavior.
It might be.
I don't know.
It might be for predators. It might be just because you're one big happy family.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe a group of them will come across as like a big predator because they're not relying on sight a lot of the time. So maybe it's just like a big mass.
Mass of cucumbers.
Yeah, the predators are like, that's big.
That's
I'm going to
scary.
swim away.
Yeah. This was super cute not to include. There's an inlet in Fiordland, which is a region of New Zealand, and it's known as the strawberry field because of the dense population of bright pink strawberry sea cucumbers.
That is so cute. I would like to go there and see that.
They're so dense. It looks like a little strawberry field.
I would love that.
Isn't that cute?
That is adorable.
This is also interesting, a throwback to the kangaroo when they were able to pause their pregnancy because of unfavorable conditions.
Oh, yeah, with the rain.
Yeah. If habitat conditions such as pressure or temperatures are unfavorable, sea cucumbers will enter estivation, which is their version of a period of dormancy. So
Okay, so they just go to sleep.
yes.
Yeah, they're like, not now. Okay, very similar to the roo. The kangaroo. Gang.
I put this here because we'll talk about it later. But their predators include the triggerfish and parrotfish, maybe some mollusks. But the reason they don't have many natural predators is that where they have an interesting way of defending themselves. So put a pin in that. I'm going to come back to it, but I did want to mention it now. Their diet, they're generally scavengers. Like I said, they eat detritus. So some of them filter plankton out of the water. Some of them feed on dead carcasses as scavengers. And some sift through the sand. And if you've ever seen a bubbler crab, how they make little like sand bubbles whenever they're done sifting it and they just throw it out and they make a little pile. Sea cucumbers do the exact same thing. They use their mouth tentacles and they eat like, it literally said kilograms worth of sand.
Oh, holy crap.
Yeah, and they sift through the sand and leave behind little sand poop logs.
Oh, yes. They are very important filter feeders.
Yes.
Yeah, because of that. Yeah.
Next is their reproduction.
Is that the picture of the poop?
Yeah, that's poop.
It's the cleanest poop I've probably seen. It's literally just sand.
It's just sand, yeah.
It's just
Everything
sand.
else is eaten.
And clean sand. Like, that is pure sand. Like, there's nothing in there.
So most sea cucumber species are dioecious, which is the word for containing one sex organ. So they will release sperm or egg into the water column to be fertilized. So there's no internal fertilization. Although few species, there's so many species, so you might as well have an anomaly.
Yeah, there'll always be an exception with that one.
Few species do fertilize internally like we do. They will birth a premature zygote, so a fertilized egg will be birthed, and it will use its tube feet to place the zygote into its pouch and develop, like our kangaroo.
What the heck? It would have known that.
And whenever,
it was so similar.
I know. And whenever the sea cucumber is ready to be birthed, it basically pops itself out of the skin like a pimple.
Oh, it's like I'm out.
Like alien, yeah.
Oh, that's kind of gross. That's a not great picture to have in my head.
Yeah, sorry. Even fewer species have full, complete internal fertilization and birth a fully developed sea cucumber. So, yeah.
Cool.
That's what I got for the sea cucumber. Stay tuned for the safe zone because there's a lot going on. I bet you $1 million you can't guess what I'm going to talk about. So stay tuned.
I am so excited. So I'm going to talk today about the Texas horned lizard, Phrynosoma cornutum. This is also more commonly referred to as the horned toad, the horny toad, and the horned frog.
Horny toad.
Horny toad. Yep, the horny toad.
I'd be pissed if that was my name.
I know. It's also the TCU mascot, the Texas Christian University.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty interesting. I am not really sure why those are the nicknames, because it is neither a toad nor a frog. It most likely comes from its body, so its rounded body and the short, blunt snout that the lizard has, as well as the name breakdown. The phrenosoma literally translates to toad-bodied, and cornutum means horned. So it's literally a...
Horned toad-bodied.
Yes, toad-bodied, horned.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, that is what the name translates to. So I guess those nicknames kind of make sense. I'll be bouncing back and forth between all of the different names throughout this.
Oh, good. Okay, keep up.
Yeah, so do your best. If you hear horned, you're probably in the right place. So there are other horned lizards out there, other species, but this one's from Texas. So, of course, we have to cover the Texas horned lizard, and it fits right in with today's episode. So they were first introduced to Europeans in 1651 by Spaniard Francisco Hernandez. And that's really all that I wanted to talk about with the taxonomy and etymology, because I really want to talk about this one really famous toad. So his name is Ol Rip, or originally Blinky, and it's called Ol Rip the Horned Toad. So in Eastland, Texas, here in Texas, there's a county clerk named Ernest E. Wood, and he decided that he was going to test the old tradition that apparently a horned toad could survive for many, many, many years due to hibernation. So he looked over at his son, and he told his son, Will, to give him the horned toad, Blinky, that he was playing with. Oh. He then decided to place that toad in a cornerstone of the Eastland County Courthouse. Basically a time capsule. What? He put this live critter, his son's little play toy, or play pet, in a time capsule at the courthouse, along with a Bible and a bottle of alcohol. Yeah,
he said, here's your entertainment.
Yeah, what a combination of things to put into a time capsule.
Yeah, for
right?
real.
A Texas horned lizard, a Bible, and a bottle of alcohol.
You know, honestly, not even that weird. I feel like that sums up Texas, though.
Yeah, especially Eastland, Texas. So anyways, 30 years later, they're making a huge deal of opening up this time capsule, which honestly, 30 years, that's not a very long time. Like, the same people who put the capsule in could probably open it.
Yeah, okay.
You know, so it's not that long. But anyways, they made a huge deal for it, and around 1,500 people showed up to witness this thing.
Damn!
And so that many people showed up because they were really pushing, like, come see the horned lizard's
Is
fate.
my man alive?
Yeah. Everybody was curious about what the fate of the lizard was going to be. So on opening day, as the tomb was opened, a man named Eugene Day stuck his hand in and pulled out the horned frog. It was presumed dead immediately, and he held it up by its leg, when all of a sudden, the other hind leg twitched.
It's
and
alive?
Boom! The horned toad was alive after 31 years in the time capsule.
31 years?
Yeah, dude.
Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. So as far as everything that I could see, I found interviews of firsthand account witnesses that were there. This guy was old, and I could definitely, send you guys the link if you are interested in that. Or you could look it up yourself. I definitely recommend it. It's quite a story. But anyways, so they opened it up. Boom, horned toad was alive. And it was a miraculous time when this happened. It was 1928. And people just went batshit. People just went nuts over this. The famous horned lizard named Old Rip now was brought everywhere, and he even met President Calvin Coolidge.
No way.
Yeah, so he went around
celebrity.
and met the president, and this craze lasted for a while, causing many people to start buying souvenirs.
Oh my God.
Buying them as souvenirs. Like, they wanted the Texas horned lizard, and so people were going crazy, and so many people bought them out of Eastland, Texas, or just East Texas in general, that it actually played a role in the population decline out there. Yeah, in the wild.
Population decline of what?
of horned lizards.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
yeah. It went so crazy that the populations actually suffered a little bit of that.
Wait, but did he eat the Bible or drink the alcohol?
Neither, but I'm glad that you brought up the Bible because that reminds me that some people believed that the fact that it stayed alive was due to the Bible being in there.
Our
And
Lord
I read
and Savior
that
Jesus Christ saved his life.
But I think the alcohol too was whiskey. I think that's what it was. I would have to double check, but yeah, it was just such an odd combo. And anyways, old Rip unfortunately died of pneumonia.
No.
I know. He survived 31 years in a tomb to just get out and die of pneumonia, dude. He dies of pneumonia on January 19th, 1929.
Wait, so how many years was he alive? Did we do the math for that?
No, so I don't know how old he was when he was put in. Okay.
Okay, but you said how many years after he was taken out of the tomb was this?
Okay, so it was 1928 when he was taken out of the tomb. So he lasted
survived
another
1
year.
year
11
real
months.
life?
Yeah, because he was taken out February in 1928.
31 years of solitude, and he dies 11 months
Yes.
after coming out.
Yeah. Almost to the T, 11
"Put me
months.
back in the
He's like,
tomb."
I'm done. He's like, I am done. So he was died, and when he died, he was actually kept in a satin-lined casket.
Oh,
a
only the
little
best
tiny
for old
one, of
Blinky.
course, and was displayed in the lobby of the new Eastland courthouse.
Oh my God.
All right. But I'm not done.
Oh.
I know.
How?
This
He's dead.
story, you would think. Story does not end there, folks. So his body was stolen
No!
not once,
No!
but twice. The first time it happened, a ransom note requesting $10,000 was sent for him to be returned.
Wow.
Somehow, I guess he was returned. I guess they paid it or did something, but
That man has been around.
yeah, but old Rip ended up back at the courthouse just in time for the second theft.
No.
And somehow, on this second theft, someone ended up finding the stolen specimen and returned it to the exhibition. But it turned out that the specimen that was returned was a fraud because it actually had 4 legs when old Rip had 3.
Oh, no!
Due to a mishap by John Connolly. And John Connolly, he picked up old Rip by his leg, and the leg just immediately separated. I know.
Pick him up by
I
his
know.
leg. Imagine being that guy when you're
That was him. John Connolly. That was him. He ripped off one of old Rip's leg. But that's how we know that it was a fraud. But this whole story just went crazy. And when I found it, I felt like I was in simulation. I was like, there is no way this is real. I was like, I cannot believe it. In fact, Looney Tunes came up with a short, like an animated short titled One Froggy Evening that covers this story. And I looked that up. I remember watching that as a little kid.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I'll have to show it to you. But people would go and see him on display. And honestly, I asked, I was like, can we
God.
go see
We need
the
to go
fraud?
see old Rip.
We have to take a field trip to go see it. But people really will. It is one of Eastland's most famous people, I guess,
Wow.
or things to come out of it. Anyways, it ended. The craze eventually ended. There were many debates that occurred. Scientists and naturalists were trying to figure out if this was possible, because when I get into the biology, you will see that there is a very big discrepancy between lifespan and how long he was in there. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that Native Americans believed that they could live up to 100 years in hibernation. Yeah, so there is some truth to horned lizards being able to live for a crazy amount of time. So don't knock it. In fact, the Native Americans would they hold the horned lizard in a very high esteem, even sacred. Yeah, and I just thought that was kind of cool because this is technically in the mythology portion of the episode.
Cool.
I couldn't figure out where to put Blinky and old Rip, but I knew I had to include it.
Yeah.
It was just too good. So moving forward with biology and other information, we have that these Texas horned lizard are flat-bodied and very dinosaur-looking creatures with horns and ridges all over them. The head has many, many horns, with 2 predominant central head spines. Their coloration will actually vary depending on their environment, and that's to better camouflage, which is one of their defense mechanisms, which I'll talk about later. And this can range from either like a yellowish or reddish brown if they're going to be in the desert, which makes sense, or like a tannish brown for the prairies. They also have dark lines from the eyes to the horns with a solid white line and some black circular spotches on its body. And so that's kind of ways that you can pinpoint out this critter. They also have fringe scales along the body. And I thought it was just to look badass. No, apparently there is a reason for the fringe scales. As I mentioned a second ago that they are found in deserts and prairies, they are typically found all over with arid and semi-arid habitats. And primarily those habitats need to have loose sand or loamy soils because they do like to burrow. Their distribution ranges from south central U.S., so like Colorado and over there, all the way to northern Mexico. But you can find them primarily in like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, New Mexico, kind of more of those southern, those warmer states because it is a reptile at the end of the day. So they are cold-blooded. Size-wise, they're pretty small, right? So you don't need a crazy cage to keep them or a crazy-sized terrarium because they're only about 2.5 to 4.5 inches or 69 to 114 millimeters, and they only weigh like 1 to 3 ounces and 25 to 90 grams. So they're small. They're small guys.
They are small. I don't know why I thought they'd be closer to like iguana size.
How scary would that be, though?
That's
I mean, with all of the spikes,
Yeah.
if this thing was bigger, it would be a menace to us. It would be a menace. So Native Americans were saying that these guys can live up to like 100 years, right? In captivity, they can only live for about 7.
Huge discrepancy between 7 and 100.
Yeah, so their expectancy in the wild is actually unknown.
Why? What?
Yeah, I couldn't find what the wild one was. But I could find that the longest in captivity was 8.9 years. Yeah, which makes sense, which honestly I'm happy about because I would rather it be open-ended than someone had pulled a fast one with old Rip, you know? Someone like snuck in, had it up its sleeve or
That's
something. Because
suspicious.
it's small enough, you can stick it up your sleeve. You can. They are very docile creatures, which do make them fantastic pets. They are very cute pets, of course. Don't buy too many because we don't want their numbers to dwindle anymore. They are very docile creatures, mostly spending their time solitary, and they'll only interact with another of its kind in order to mate. They spend a lot of their time during the day basking in the sun because, like most reptiles, they are unable to make and produce vitamin D, so they need to get it from an outside source. So they will bask in the sun and search for food during the day and burrow into the sand at night and during hibernation. So these guys will hibernate. And their period of hibernation will be from like October until around late March. And they'll burrow, and whenever they burrow, they'll face a particular direction. So they'll either face south or southwest, and the reason why they face this way is because the sunlight exposure is at its highest during the winter in that direction. Yeah, so I thought that was really cool that they know that, like it's ingrained into their code to face that way.
Have you ever heard of lizard time?
I have not heard of lizard time. What's lizard time?
So it's like, if you really just need to go lay out in the sun and like, touch grass, then you're like, it's lizard time.
Oh, yes.
And you just go bathe in the sun.
I feel like I have lizard time a lot.
Yeah,
I absolutely need the sun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's a little bit about their hibernation. For mating, they will breed right after hibernation from mid-April to mid-June. And the males during this first month will go and try to find any receptive females. And they'll do this, very species-specific display of bobbing their heads up and down. And it's
They say,
super
"What's
cute.
up, baby?"
Yes. I don't know if you've ever seen lizards bob their heads up and down before, but that's what essentially they're doing.
So they wake up for hibernation, hit the ground running.
Yes, and bobbing, running and bobbing. They're towards their ladies. So with the female, if she rejects the male, she will just like wave her tail or just move away. So nothing spicy there.
Okay.
It's not like, I think what the tarantula, no, the mantis or some spiders that will like eat the other.
Say, you ain't it.
Ooh, and that would be a fun episode to do on like weird mating rituals.
That's a good one.
That would be a good one. We got to add it to the list. If the female is down, they will come together in a type of amplexus for a couple of hours with the male on top.
What's amplexus?
Amplexus is just the position kind of that they get into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the male will be on top for a couple hours. And
Hours?
yeah, I know, the endurance. Yeah, I know. After this mating occurs, the female will then fall pregnant for 44 days before she will lay eggs. And she'll lay 14 to 37 eggs at night that are incubated for 6 weeks. And these eggs are laid in burrows that the females will dig. These burrows can reach about 12 to 25 centimeters and take 5 to 10 hours to complete. So this lady, she is pregnant, she is digging this burrow, and then she has to lay the eggs.
You're saying it takes 5 to 10 hours to dig a 12 to 25 centimeter
Yes.
deep?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe they're just really bad at it. They're just really inefficient diggers.
Maybe it needs to be perfect, okay? She's nesting.
Maybe. See, after all of that work, though, the hatchlings are independent right off the bat. So the mom is done. So as soon as she lays the eggs into the burrow, she will linger around for a little bit before dipping. So there is zero parental involvement.
Every man for himself.
Essentially. Once the eggs are laid, boom, out. And the new hatchlings, they can become reproductively mature at around 2 years old, and then the process will start all over again. Moving forward with their predators, they have a whole bunch of them. I mean, they're small, right? No. So they're going to have basically anything out there that is looking for prey is going to go for them. Okay. Sick. So they do have some defense mechanisms, but we'll talk about that in the safe zone. But their primary predators are going to be hawks, roadrunners, snakes, coyotes, and foxes. And what they feed on, they primarily eat harvester ants, okay? And that kind of plays a huge role with their population number. But harvester ants, if they don't have any of those, they'll eat termites, beetles, and grasshoppers. And the one thing with the harvester ants is that apparently they have venom.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I don't know much about harvester ants. But these ants will have venom, and the horned frog has a blood plasma factor that can actually neutralize this venom, which is pretty cool, which allows them to eat it. And then they also have copious amounts of mucus coating the inside of their mouth and everything that will incapacitate any swallowed ants.
Cool.
So it's like, I'm going to stop your defense mechanism and paralyze you with mucus. Oh, that is their method, which is super metal. These guys are threatened, and specifically in Texas, which is very sad.
Very sad.
And this could be to old Rip, but more realistically, it is likely due to the overuse of pesticides that are killing a lot of these ants, as well as imported fire ants. So those like fire ants, they're not supposed to be here, right? So, and those ants, they're super territorial, and they will actually eat the hatchlings of the harvester ants, completely wiping their populations. So with no food and with their regions just kind of dwindling down, their natural environment dwindling, their numbers are struggling in the wild.
Aww.
There is good news, though, because there are a ton of efforts to establish some good reintroduction programs for them into the wild, as well as capture and release programs. Like, there's a lot of studies going into how can we bring these numbers up? What can we do to increase conservation efforts and all of that good stuff.
That's good.
Yeah. It's a little bright light in that. And that's all that I really wanted to talk about for the biology and just like the introduction for the Texas horned lizard in general. Now we're going to go ahead and move on into the...
Welcome to the safe zone.
The safe zone.
We're going to start off with the sea cucumber again. So they date as far back as the Ming Dynasty in 1368 to 1644 BC.
Okay, so they're older than the horned lizard.
They are written to be harvested for food and medicinal purposes in the Ming Dynasty.
Okay, cool.
Flash forward to now, they are currently a delicacy in China, indigenous Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. You can deep fry them, you can cut them up, you can put them in the soup, or you can eat them whole. My friend's dad used to like to tell this story. He went to a business meeting in Japan, I believe. And there was a language barrier, so as they were passing around different, delicacies, you would pick one up, and there was this like really dark black, just gelatinous blob, and his little neighbor said, eat one, try one. And so he said he picked it up and he took a bite, and it was the worst texture and taste.
Well, because it's leathery, right?
Imagine.
It's leathery,
Yes.
squishy.
He was like, I wanted to spit it out, but you're not going to do that.
You can't be rude, especially if it's for work.
Yeah.
You cannot.
So he was like, politely, what is this? And like I said, language barrier, he was like, ocean vegetable. And he was like, got it.
Close.
Wow. Yeah, what does that mean? So he turned on, he was like, so ocean cucumber. And he goes, what? And then, somebody chimes in and goes, oh, it's actually a sea cucumber. Have you ever heard of those? And, he was like, no, not really, actually. And so he was describing them, and he was just like, yeah, so we chop them up, we don't deep fry them or none. They just cover them in sauce and serve it whole.
Oh my gosh. Imagine how salty that's gonna be.
He said, worst taste he had just, oh yeah.
Could not be
imagine
me.
the leathery texture. It's,
I'm already a texture eater. Like I can't do sushi. Like I cannot imagine putting what I held in my hand during dissection in my mouth at any point.
No.
At any point.
No.
Ugh.
So certain populations do eat them, and they are a pretty big economic factor because they are so expensive to harvest and to eat. They're a delicacy. They are also important scavengers and decomposers, so they're really big in the food chain, getting rid of detritus and dead organisms.
That's important. Gotta keep it clean.
They also have quite a few commensal relationships, meaning so either one organism benefits and the other doesn't, or it can be mutual where both organisms in a relationship benefit. So the cleaner shrimp and certain crabs pick through, either the cucumber's skin to, prune
any
and,
microbes or anything on it.
Or they might follow through the sea cucumber's waste. Remember I said they get those sand longs, so they come along and clean that up. And interestingly enough, here's your fun fact for your party. The pearlfish lives inside a sea cucumber's stretched out anus for protection. I don't think the sea cucumber gets anything out of that.
I was about to say, I feel like I vaguely remember learning about that, and if I remember correctly, it almost becomes negative because the pearlfish will eat the intestines in the respiratory tree. Ooh. Yeah, they'll feed off of it. So it doesn't kill it, and you'll talk about that. Why it doesn't kill the organism for it to be fed on like that.
So how would you like a fish in your anus? But your anus is open, you know what I mean? It's not like clenched
Just
shut.
like going in and out.
Yeah, and it also attracts predators because a fish is darting in and out of this crevice. So it's like, what you doing over there?
I just saw a video today of a full body fish spa where you go into this pond and it's like those fish that eat the dead skin.
I did that in Mexico. It was my feet.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it with feet, but this one was full body. I wonder how full body it is. At one point, are they spread them?
Oh God.
So maybe the pearlfish is eating the dead skin cells, and it's really just a good thing. A good thing. What a place to call home.
Okay, it gets even better.
Put some incense in there. Tapestry.
Light a candle. Why don't you?
Light a candle.
Some
Stay
sea
a
cucumber species have developed anal teeth to keep out fish.
Anal teeth.
Anal teeth.
Anal teeth.
They're like, you can't live here.
So does that kill the pearlfish?
Well, they just can't get in because it's like closed.
Ah, so it's like they have their own sphincter now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That would suck to just have your butt open all the time and not be able to like control.
Well, they breathe out of their butt, so it's open on purpose.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, like, does it pulsate? Does it like open and close a little? Like, does it?
I did not watch a video. I don't know.
Because like when we breathe, our nostrils flare or like our lungs expand. So I wonder if their butthole flares when they breathe.
I mean,
that would make sense. Yeah, yeah.
So sea cucumbers are also used in medicine. That's why we're also in the safe zone. According to the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, sea cucumbers are used in traditional Chinese medicine to treat fatigue, impotence, constipation, frequent urination, and joint pain. Chondroitin sulfate is an important structural component of cartilage which resists compression. So remember I said they don't necessarily have calcified bones. They do have some cartilage for support. And
you would have to, otherwise they would straight up just be a blob.
The sulfate is an important part that helps it resist compression. So this sulfate is used as an anti-tumor, anti-prolific cancer cells, things like that. So I thought that was really cool. We have found a medicinal use for sea cucumbers.
Well, and the East has been doing it for so long.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's no wonder we just got to start bringing it over here a little bit more.
So I mentioned their neural tissue. They have something called astrocytes, which are found in the nervous system, and they aid in basic neural pathway functions, things like that.
Oh, so that's probably how they move and how things work.
You can isolate these astrocytes to help protect against spine injury and acute injury, things like that, especially for motor function. So there is a tie there. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
So here's what I've been wanting to tell you the entire time. We're talking about freaky defense mechanisms, right? Sea cucumbers have two. One, they produce a toxin called saponin, which binds to the cholesterol found embedded in the cell membrane of all cells.
Ooh.
And it causes rapid cell death, which eventually leads to organism cell death. Sea cucumbers, in fact, do not produce cholesterol themselves, so they are unharmed when the toxin is released into the water. So this is what I bet you never could have guessed. In a process called evisceration, which is a method of autotomy, which is self-amputation, like you see in lizard tails, they can voluntarily release them in
Like when they're trying to get away.
in danger. Yeah. Sea cucumbers rapidly expel their gut and intestines, and in certain species, they'll rapidly expel their respiratory tree out their anus to confuse and entangle their attacker.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
They launch
At very high speeds.
at high speeds too.
Yes. Well, you gotta get it. If you're gonna do it. Go big or go home.
So they just launch like a net of intestines out of its cloaca.
Yes. Like popping a
What?
champagne bottle style.
Bloop.
If you were to just shake up a ketchup bottle and just squeeze as hard as you can, strings of spaghetti come out. And it's super sticky. So
Like streamers.
yes.
Oh my gosh, that's wild to imagine them just being like, boop,
Yep.
and they now have nothing inside of them. How the hell does that work?
Well, it happens exactly how you think it is. So by contracting their body wall, the cloaca tears and the anus opens, which allows their guts to be shot out. So a lot happens to make this happen. But like I said, you're trying to escape a predator. So, you might have to take a few shots to live.
Yeah, I mean, does it come back? Like, do they go back and like suck it back up their butt once
No,
the
actually,
prey our predator is gone?
the gut and or respiratory tree, depending on what comes out, depending on the species. It detaches completely, and the goal is to immobilize their attacker as they either inch or tiptoe away. Also, fun fact, the respiratory tree is 20 times longer than the sea cucumber itself.
That's disgusting.
So we're talking about like a net.
That's disgusting. It's just coiled up in there.
Yes, it is. That's why we were like, when we dissected it, it's just a pound of spaghetti.
It literally looks like a plate of spaghetti.
But don't you worry, replacement parts grow back in 1 to 5 weeks, so...
Oh, that's not bad. So
I just hope you just don't get attacked.
They could have been in the regen episode.
Yeah. That's cool. I don't know what happens in the next 1 to 5 weeks because you no longer have part of your intestine and or respiratory tree, but the price to pay to survive.
Yeah, they'll do their best, right? For the toxins, whenever they spew it into the water, like, does that affect humans? Like, because we also have cholesterol. So, like, if I'm diving and I get too close to one, which you should never touch anything when you're in the water, but... if I did, and it released these toxins, what could I expect to happen? Like, could they be in danger zone too?
No, I'm going to say no. I read that it causes basic skin irritation, and if you breathe it in, which we're underwater, we're not breathing.
Yeah, you definitely cannot.
Then it would mess you up. But we must have a pretty good skin protector barrier. Because
I mean, that's the whole point of skin. Yeah.
It just causes a rash and or irritation. Okay. Not as bad as... what it does to fish predators. Those are screwed. But no, I think we're okay. Cool.
Well, yeah, because the fish actually have to breathe it in, right? Like, it'll go over their gills into their body.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I was curious whenever you brought it up because I was like, I know we have cholesterol, and I wonder what would happen.
So, freaky defense mechanism.
Yeah, freaky.
You can either spray a toxin or you can just rapidly vomit out your butt.
Ooh.
Your entire... either lung or intestine.
So instead of fight or flight, it is fight, flight, or what was it? Evisceration?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if that was one of our defense mechanisms too?
Like your little buddy comes up behind you and scares you and
you just like shit out your lungs?
Yeah.
That is a terrible...
Whoa, dude, you scared me.
Well, dude, you have to, like, pick it back up.
You're like, my bad.
My bad, dude. We would be living a totally different world.
That would be wild.
That would be wild. We would all have really loose assholes if that were the case, too.
You'd have to check, make sure nothing's living in there.
Yeah, you would. No pearlfish. Otherwise, you get teeth.
Yeah, I need to grow some teeth.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Well, terrible but fascinating.
Yes.
Terrible but fascinating.
Yes. It definitely was my top pick when we decided to do defense mechanism.
Oh, yeah. That's an easy pick. That's a fucking easy pick. All right. So, for the Texas horned lizard, I actually want to start off with their defense mechanisms because they have a few. So I'll kind of go through the different ones and end with my favorite. So first, they will flee. So they can actually move very, very fast whenever they want to. I mentioned that they were docile and pretty calm, but if they need to, they can skirt. They can get out of the area, and this is especially useful from ambush predators like diamondback rattlesnakes and stuff like that are kind of lying in wait for the horned frog to show up. So that's the first one. If they realize they cannot flee, then they move into their second option, which is straight up just to freeze. Freeze, yeah. It's kind of that's my reaction too. I don't fight or flight, I freeze. And that's exactly what these guys do. They'll freeze and try to stay as motionless as possible and blend into their environment. So they really they really bank on their skin or their skin, the camouflage, to help them blend in. And the spines and the ridges on their body actually will help to reduce shadows, making them even harder to spot. Huh. So not only are those spines badass looking, but they're very useful as well in a couple of different ways.
I guess one of the reasons you would want to stay still is the only one I can think of is like if a hawk is circling you, then it's harder to see something, blended and unmoving. I just can't figure out why you would freeze.
I mean, it's like it could be, the fact that they are harder to spot whenever they're not moving. Because it's when you see movement, like you're going to catch it out of your eye. Even we do, right? You see the peripheral movement, you see something. They also freeze kind of like possums do. Maybe it's like a feigning death.
Like
maybe.
A feigning goat.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly like a fainting goat. Yeah. So I bet they just kind of freeze and try not to move any muscle and hope that the predator will be like, where'd he go?
Where did he go?
And move on.
I can't find him.
So unfortunately, if that doesn't work, then they will begin to take up their defensive position. And this defensive position, what they'll do is they will flatten their torso, so they'll like get really low. They will raise their tail. Okay, and so they'll raise their tail in an effort to, kind of like lizards, to get the predator to bite the tail and ideally launch it in the air. Because they're like, if I can sacrifice this little bit of my tail I'm launched far away, then I can try to stay still again and try to blend in. So they'll do that. If that doesn't work and they're still being approached, they will hiss and begin to defend themselves, which I don't know how well that will work considering they're like, 4.5 inches. So if the hisses don't work, they will then inflate their bodies, causing those spikes and everything to poke out even more.
Oh, cool. Pufferfish
Yes,
style?
that's literally what I was going to say.
Wow.
Almost like a pufferfish. But with the pufferfish, they actually suck in water, and that's how they're able to get so big. But with these guys, they can't obviously suck in a bunch of water at last moment, so they use air. And it's kind of funny because they're like, oh shit, I guess if I can't run away, then I'm just going to go head first. And they'll actually stick their heads, their spiny heads, into their predator's mouth.
Oh, brave.
Yeah, they'll just like stick it in. And it's kind of like a gamble, right? Because it's like, okay, it can bite down, it can crush me, and boom, I'm dead. One, it's a quick death. The other option is that the spikes will actually pierce the inside of the mouth, deterring the critter, causing them to drop it, run away. And actually, those spines can lead to death sometimes. Like there have been instances of, the predators being found next to the horned lizards.
Oh, wow.
Dead because of the spines.
Yeah.
And the horns and everything.
How metal.
Yeah, all right? Everything about these guys are metal. They're super cool. And then finally, probably the most metal, the most Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne of them all is their final thing is when their head is in their mouth, what they'll try to do is they will squirt streams of blood from their eyeballs.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ew. Out of their
Out of their eyeballs.
Why their
and
eyes?
And it's not like a little bit, it's not like a little spritz of blood. It's like streams of blood coming out of these guys' eyeballs.
What is the purpose of that?
So the blood missiles are...
Blood missiles?
They are foul. It's foul smelling and tasting.
Oh, God.
And so they'll shoot them at the predator's eye sockets. And it's important to know that they don't always do this, all right? And they typically do it with certain types of predators, mainly canines. Canines are the ones that they'll do it for. So like the dogs, wolves, anything like that, coyotes, that they're the ones that are often going to be getting hit with this blood. And this blood, I mean, it's pressurized, baby. It goes nearly 5 feet. A
4-inch lizard shoots at 5 feet?
Yes, yeah, which is 1.5 meters.
Wow.
That is significant.
That's a lot of pressure.
That is significant, yeah.
Oh, man, popping his eyes out.
Literally. So the way that it works is the rings of muscles around their veins shut off blood flow out of the head, all right? So blood can't leave the head. This pressure builds up immensely until the blood pools in their orbital sinuses. So we have sinuses or air pockets all in our face, and so do most creatures, included the horned frog. So it has this pressure build up, this blood pooling, they are locked and loaded, their eyes get visibly puffy, and then the thing that they need to pull the trigger, and why it typically happens whenever their heads are in the mouth, is because they actually have receptors on their heads that will activate this. So it's like the receptors are touched and boom.
Ew.
Blood rockets.
Oh.
Yeah. It's crazy. And there are so many things on it. Like it's on Nature's Weirdest. It's on all sorts of stuff that you can find. So a lot of other reptiles can kind of leak blood out of their eyes due to this same like pressure buildup mechanism, like shutting off the flow. And they'll actually do this in times of stress sometimes. So it was thought that maybe like the original ancestor got stressed out by a predator, panicked, shot out blood from its eyes, got dropped.
Whoa, that was cool.
Yeah, got dropped from the predator, realized it worked, and then boom, that gene was marked and kept on for survival.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. With the applications for human medicine and stuff, there's really not a whole ton that I can find that they're doing, which makes sense. And that was really all that I really wanted to touch on. My main thing was that the fucking blood missiles, I don't even...
That's wild.
Yeah, it's insane. We will absolutely be posting something of this on our Instagram. It's too cool, too metal to not include.
Well, screw a hospital dog. Give me like a therapy dog. Give me a therapy lizard.
Yeah. What if you bring it on an airplane and just like pet its
This
head?
is my service animal.
Just starts like spewing blood all over
It would be
people.
extra pressurized up there.
Oh, it would be extra pressurized up there. I wonder if it would happen like automatically.
Oh, that would suck. Poor guy.
Oh man.
Foul smelling blood everywhere.
And that's all that we have for our Safe Zone today. As we wrap up this episode of the Freaky Fauna Files podcast, we want to extend our most heartfelt gratitude to all of our listeners for joining us today on this wild journey. From toxic sea cucumbers to blood-shooting Texas horned lizards, we hope you've enjoyed exploring the bizarre and fascinating world of nature's freaky defense mechanisms with us.
Remember, the adventure doesn't end here. Stay tuned for future episodes where we uncover even more peculiar creatures and delve deeper into the mysteries of the animal kingdom. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Freaky Fauna Files for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and discussion about weird and wonderful things in the world of fauna.
Until next time, keep your eyes peeled for the unexpected, and may your curiosity continue to lead you on extraordinary journeys. Thanks for listening, and stay freaky.